Lisa. I'm going back in time almost 20 years. It doesn't seem like that long, but nearly 20 years ago, I started a business making custom window treatments, and one of the first things I did was go to a class. I was reading in a decorating magazine one day. I happened to be looking at some of the ads in the back of the magazine, and there was an ad for a drapery school, and it was only a couple of hours from me, and I was just amazed, and I contacted them for information, and I just couldn't believe that they had this wonderful program and it was so close by. So I took a week off from work, scheduled my vacation, and went to this class, and it was just fantastic. And it was taught by this wonderful lady, Cheryl Strickland. She did this for many years, and the school has moved now. It's not in this area anymore. I think it's north of Atlanta. But I took classes there. I did some training, used my other skills to do some training for her at some of the conferences that she put on. And it was just a great beginning to my career in doing custom window treatments. I was very, very excited when I finished the class. I came home to show, everybody the things that I had made during class. And one of the things I was especially excited about was making this. Because when I started my business, you kind of start by doing stuff for your friends and family. And I had a friend who wanted me to do her dining room. It's a bay window. Now, bay window is not a beginner project, but I took it on anyway, and we did swags and cascades. And these are swags, and cascades are the things that come down the side, the folded things that come down the side. Sometimes people call them jabots. It's technically something different, but still. So you got your swags and your cascades, and there actually were some jabots in the middle of this bay window. Her husband must have thought I didn't have the vaguest idea what I was doing. He was right, because I came over there and measured like 5 times before I finally made anything and put it up, and it looked pretty good. She was very pleased with it, but I always knew that those swags weren't right, because at that time, I hadn't been to class. I had a book for instructions, and my book and how it told me to do the swags, I could never get more than 4 pleats in my swags. But look at that one. That one is perfect. This is one I made in class, and when I pleated it up, Cheryl came over and she looked at what I'd done. She said, "It's perfect." And I was so happy and so excited. So that's what I want to share on my page here, is my experience going to drapery school. The other ladies in this photograph, I remember a couple of them, but most of them I don't remember their names. I'm not going to be able to capture that, but they were part of my class, and I did eventually take other classes as well. Now, the color scheme that I'm going with here, I'm wearing this orange shirt, which I still have, I still wear. Still doesn't look very good on me because orange is not really my color. There's some orange in other places, and of course my swag here was made out of orange fabric. So I thought I would use that, and I didn't have quite the right color, but I have this old color called Crisp Cantaloupe that was a Stampin' Up color. I went through my designer paper, and I couldn't find anything with oranges in it that would work for a background paper, so I decided to use cardstock. It's been a while since I did a layout with a lot of cardstock, and I could use some real nice embellishments with that too. These are from My Mind's Eye. This is Jubilee, and I like this banner thing here. Now, I could do a banner out of fabric, and that would certainly be another way to go here, is to do some fabric embellishments. I may add some things to this page that are related to the business. I'm not going to worry about it too much, because my intention is that I have a lot of things that I've saved from my years in the window treatment business, and my plan is to put those in a small album and sort of do one about the business, because I have photographs of window treatments I've made in different customers' houses, and I'd like to put that maybe in a small album and capture a lot of that. So I'll probably do some other things later on, but for now I thought it would be fun to use some of these. We've got some little buttons here and several things that sort of remind me of that time period. This was 1997. And at that time, chintz fabrics, these florals with a little sheen to the fabric, those were really, really popular. You can see one behind us that was rolled down there for us to stand in front of for our photographs, and in this treatment as well. Those were really popular, so I might put some floral looks on here. I like this button that has that. So we may do some of that to kind of bring back that time period. So that's sort of where I'm going with this page. Here's my sketch with 2 photos, and then this Polaroid down here. Now, most of the time I scan Polaroids, because you don't know whether they're going to deteriorate over time. I'm probably not going to worry about it on this one. It's a fun thing, and I figure it'll last me as long as I'm going to be looking at these albums. because this is not the kind of thing that's going to matter to anybody but me in years to come. Now, because I'm using cardstock, I want to add a little bit more interest to the background for this, so I thought I would do some stenciling. A lot of it will get covered up, but we can still stencil, and I have 3 different stencils here. Let's move this out of the way. I was looking for some round ones. This was the one I was thinking of, and I pulled it out, and it's kind of modern, the design on it. So it may be a little bit too modern, and it may be a little too small. I haven't decided for sure. I like this. This was originally cut, I think, with my Cricut. It's a design off the Cricut. And then I like this one, but it's awfully big. The design here is probably the most appropriate, although this is not bad with those scallop edges, and it's kind of a homemade sort of look there, although we were learning how to make professional treatments. We didn't want them to look homemade. We wanted them to look professional. But I do kind of like this one, so I think it's the one I'm going to go with. Let's look at some color samples. I did some swatches to see what mist I wanted to use on this crisp cantaloupe paper. So here's some that I did. This is Canyon by Mr. Huey, and you can barely see it. When it was drying, it was kind of dark, but I don't think that was going to work because you can't really see it. Here's Heidi Swapp Peach. That's not a bad one. And let's see how this one came out. This was the last one I tried. This is Heidi Swapp, and it's a yellow color called Mustard, and I didn't know how it would do on the orange, but I really like it because I need to brighten this up a little bit. So I think this is the one I'm going to work with. Yeah, I like this. It's kind of yellows that crisp cantaloupe paper up a little bit and gets the color a little closer to what I'm going for. So we'll take that off. That's pretty subtle design for the background, and we'll let that dry. So you can see the finished stenciling there. Get a little bit of subtle design. And I've decided to put the photos on some navy cardstock. This is Midnight Muse from Stamping Up, because several of us are wearing blue, or several of the others in the group are wearing blue, and there's some blue in other aspects of the photos. I measure what's on my sketch. My sketches print out at 6 inches square, and then I just take the measurements of each item and double it. And I think that larger piece was 7 inches long, and the bottom piece was like 3 inches, something like that, 8, or maybe it's 8 and 3. I think anyway, it worked out just beautifully out of this 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And I did trim down that one photo a little bit because I decided that that banner looked better going across the top instead of in the corner. It fit better there. And I also found a couple of other pieces of chipboard that were not part of this original collection, and there's one there that looks that has good wording on it and is a nice fit. Now I'm doing something fun with the lettering. We're going to do some sewing, and I've experimented with this, and I did a card, but I have never done this on a scrapbook page. What I want to do is some hand stitching with the lettering. So I need to sort of draw in what I want to stitch over, and I'm going to use some chipboard, the kind of leftover parts of the chipboard, to draw in the word school on the bottom. And I'm kind of using my ruler to hold this straight. I end up getting the C a little bit off the line there, but you'll soon see the stitching. There's the word school across the bottom. It's also going to say drapery, and I decided to hand write the word drapery, and then I'll just stitch over it. I'm going to fit the bottom of the P and the bottom of the Y down in underneath the word school. So I'm just marking these in pencil, putting a mat underneath, and then using my Dressmaker's Awl, which is what I use for a paper piercer. You can use whatever paper piercer you have, just to punch holes. And you just manually punching these, kind of eyeballing the space between them. This is where your stitching is going to go, is on these holes. And I'll be zooming in here in a moment where you can, and slowing down a little bit, where you can see this a little more closely. Now, because my word is, the stitching is fairly close together, here I've got a lot of stitching to do, I decided not to do the full 6 strands of drapery of DMC embroidery floss, so I split it to 3 strands. Now this kind of thing is a bit time consuming. It's not difficult to do at all. You're just doing a simple running stitch, bringing the needle up through one of the holes that you've made and then down through the next hole, and you go all the way around, and then you go back again to make sure you cover all of the space. But it is time consuming, and if you like hand stitching, it's a great project. It's fun, kind of watch TV and do this kind of project. If you don't like hand stitching, I don't recommend it because you'll get tired of it in a hurry. It's not frustrating or anything, it just takes some time. Now I'm going to do the same thing with school with these block letters, but I thought I'd give them a little more emphasis. I'm coloring in the middles. With a marker. This is I believe the Tempting Turquoise marker from Stamping Up. I can't recall for sure, but something like that. And then we're just going to go around the edges where I've already got my little holes and do the same kind of stitching. Now I keep moving the paper back and forth because you have to you can sometimes feel the holes from the back, but you kind of have to look at where they are. That's one of the things that makes this a tiny bit more tedious than sewing on fabric. And I'm going to go around the whole letter L, going around it one row of stitching, and then you'll see me come back here at the end in a moment with the last little bit of the L, and then I'll move on to the O and so forth. Now here we go. We're zooming in a little bit and we're just getting the kind of coming back around so that I pick up the rest of the stitches, fill in all of the space going around the edge of the letter. And then I'll move over to the O. I do not worry about what the back of this looks like. That is not my concern, how it looks on the back. I just want to get the front covered. I remember I started doing cross stitch when I was in junior high school, and sometime years and years later when I was grown up and had a real job, I went to this store on my lunch hour and to buy some supplies for embroidery, and I remember these two ladies talking about the backs of their work and how to make the backs neat, and I'm thinking, are you supposed to make the backs neat? Who cares whether the back looks neat or not? I still have some of my cross stitch hanging in my house. The back is probably not neat, but nobody knows. It's in a frame. So the back of this is not neat either. It's going to be in my album, and I'm the only one who's probably going to ever know what the back of that looks like. So I've got my stitching done, and I want to make a little bit more interest to this cardstock. So I'm going to add some blue paint, and I wanted to give it a little bit of a green tone to it, so I mixed some blue and turquoise. I got too much turquoise. That turquoise really went a long way, so I'll add some more blue in there. I just want to, add a little bit of contrast, a little bit of tone-on-tone shading to this blue cardstock. And of course, one of the nice things about cardstock is you usually have more of it. So if you don't like how something came out, you can throw it away, flip it over and use the other side, or you can throw it away and try something different. I have a whole class on using cardstock on your pages called Creative Cardstock. It's been one of my most popular classes. First one I did, people really like it because we do a lot of different things using cardstock on our pages. Because sometimes you just can't get the colors and the designs you want out of designer paper. This is going to have kind of a soft look for these bits of cardstock. You won't see a lot of it with the photos and everything covering it, but you will see some of this design, and I think it makes a really interesting page. Right, those are dried. We're going to add a little bit of washi tape across the bottom, some yellow and some orange. Again, just to add a little bit more color, sort of make all this stuff come together. And I'm picking out, I'm going to pick out some chipboard, but I did go ahead and pull a few other things that were not traditional scrapbooking supplies. This piece of paper happened to be on my work table from another project. It was from an old sewing book, and then I went and pulled out some old supplies, including some fabric swatches. These were discontinued fabric books, and I'm just going to take a few of those and add them to the page. I've got some areas there in that one photo that can be covered up, and you're not going to miss anything. This one's a piece of sheer, and I was going to use the face set of it, and I decided to use the part where it had the manufacturer's label on the back because I sold fabric as part of my business, and looking at those that information on the back, what kind of fabric it was, how wide it came, and all that. That was a big part of it. I even put some pins. We had these very special German-made pins that we used in class, and you could buy from her. And so there's all kinds of mementos. I mean, I could do tons and tons of stuff. I was a little reluctant to go dig things out because I knew I had so much stuff. I probably even have some of the original material from the class, the book, somewhere, but I didn't get into doing that. I didn't get into hunting that. Now I am taking, and I could use real buttons, but I decided to use these chipboard buttons because they had more design to them. Now, the final touches that I put on the page, besides the journaling, is I sewed these chipboard buttons on. I've got real buttons, of course, but the reality is you don't really use buttons that much in making window treatments anyway. So I wanted to kind of tie together these various chipboard elements with some real stuff, including various pieces of fabric. Then I stamped some measuring information here, and then a little bit out of a sewing book. Went ahead and put the date on there. I went back and looked at a calendar. I knew it was the first week in May. I didn't remember the exact dates, but I went back and pulled that up because I knew it was like a Tuesday through Friday class. I've got my pens. I just stuck those down in the chipboard so they would stay put. So we've kind of pulled all the colors together here with the washi and a little bit of stenciling, lots of sewing. So this page took quite a while to pull together, but it's a special page because it's an event that really kicked off many years. I was in this business for 16 years, so it really kicked everything off, and so it's really important. And hopefully one of these days I will go back and do some more pages or create a mini album for this, but for now I have it for my regular albums about me, because I used to do everything just for my husband and I, and finally a few years ago I realized, you ought to capture some of your own memories that have nothing to do with your marriage, just personal things about me and my childhood and things that happened before I knew him. So this is one of those pages that'll go in that album. And he was helpful to me, certainly, in getting started. We created a work table like this. That was the first thing when I came home from the school, I said, one of the first things we have to do is build a work table. And then I gave him the dimensions for this work table, 5 feet wide by 12 feet long. And we had plans and everything, and true to form, he just jumped right in and took this on as a project, and I still have that table. So as long as I have this house, I will have that table. I haven't done much with it in a long time, but it's still there. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for this kind of unique page. You'll find the sketch over on my blog, and this will be part of the sketchbook that'll be coming up towards the end of the year, 1st of January. Thanks for watching.